You Are Still Here, Never Gone by Xin Yi Wu. Chapter 1. That summer was indelibly imprinted in Cheng Zheng's memory. It had been swelteringly hot and seemed to go on forever. Standing on the cusp of senior high graduation and preparing for the starting of university, it felt like metamorphosis. But to Su Eugene, what left the deepest impression was the struggles and confusion preceding the transformation. She didn't know if the caterpillar fresh out of the cocoon would turn into a colorful butterfly, or if a dark and gloomy journey awaited. Su Eugene was born and raised in a county near the provincial capital. Her father was a biology teacher, while her mother was originally an accountant in a textile factory who was eventually forced to step down during the enterprising revolution and become a homemaker instead. Due to her father's poor health and constant admissions to the hospital, the family was not rich. However, her parents were extremely doting on their only child, so Suyuji never had to experience what it felt like to lack something. After completing her junior year in the high school her father taught at, her parents lamented the fact that the local school standard was behind. For their beloved daughter to stand a good chance of attending a quality university, they utilized whatever savings and connections they had and transferred her to a better school in the provincial capital. Eugene felt uncomfortable with her parents' arrangements. Firstly, this would require her to be independent and live apart from her parents for the first time in her life. Secondly, the expensive school fees caused her much heartache every night. Of course, she could not battle her parents' desires, nor did she want to disappoint them. So for her sophomore year, she became a transfer student at a local school in the provincial capital. Eugene had already expected that she would require some adjusting to a new environment, but she didn't foresee how emotional she would get when she met challenges and setbacks. Her grades were not shabby. In her previous school, she was always among the top 10 in her cohort. However, in her first examinations in the new school, she felt a distinct difference in standards and was fifth from the bottom in her batch. That night, she hid under her blanket and cried for a long time, despairing at the prospect of telling her parents about her grades. Shocked with a greater dose of embarrassment, Eugene felt that she had frittered away her parents' hard earned money. In the subsequent days, she felt burdened by her identity as fifth from the bottom and could not bear to face her classmates. Eventually, she grew out of her embarrassment and strove towards excellence. However, reality being the cold damper it usually is, meant that no matter how diligent she was, Eugene was never able to have that one outstanding moment to reverse the shame of the first examinations. Although she was never again ranked from the bottom, when her sophomore year ended in a class of 60 odd students, Eugene never broke into the top half in standing. Slowly, she came to believe that her parents' expectations of her and the school transfer were a complete mistake. Perhaps she had never been an intelligent child. With the completion of their sophomore year, the students were to be allocated into either the sciences or arts stream. Eugene did well in languages, was terrible in history, and her favorite subject was physics. Her mathematics and chemistry left much to be desired, and she was middling in English and politics. Understandably, she took a long time to decide on her major. One day, after school, she was passing the doorway of the class, which was choked full of boys, and was heading towards the ladies' room at the end of the corridor, when she heard, "What rubbish! I'm obviously choosing the sciences. Who doesn't know that only nerdy girls and those terrible in their studies would enroll in arts?" This was followed by the raucous laughter of quite a few boys. Eugene felt all the blood in her body rush to her face. Actually, she was aware that those boys were unlikely to be targeting her. But to a young, sensitive girl with low self esteem, she felt that she was the exact geeky and academically poor student they were laughing over. She turned her head back and glared hatefully, but was unable to identify the boy who had passed the comment. She felt out of place since it was all boys and hurried off in the direction of the ladies' room. As a result of that incident, when the final moment to declare one's interest in arts or sciences came, Eugene chose science without hesitation. She thought to herself, Perhaps this decision would preserve her final shred of dignity. So, in the swelteringly hot season of May, Eugene sat in a year 3 science class, staring at chemical equations that was alien to her. She tossed the pen she was holding back into her pencil case, heaved back her body to lean against her backrest, and let out a despairing sigh. She was finally aware of how silly she was to have decided in a fit of emotion. She knew there could only be dark days ahead. What bothered her wasn't merely academic work. She glanced around the filled classroom. Everyone was buried in their study material, and it was utterly quiet. Everyone was concentrating on their self revision, and no one was conversing with another. Eugene thought self mockingly. Even if she was surrounded by groups of students chattering away, she would not likely be a participant either. This class was similar to all other science classes in that there was a masculine majority. After the streaming, there were 57 people in this class, which only 8 were girls. Among them, 5 were locals in the provincial capital, so didn't stay in the hostel. They would return into their homes for meals before returning to the campus at night for self-revision sessions, and when those ended, would once again return home for the night. Every day, the city girls were most lively before morning reading periods and evening self-revision sessions. They would discuss the exciting plot details of the previous night's drama serial and the latest style of their favorite idols in the newest MVs. They would continue with the gorgeous dress in the shop of the corner of the someone's alley, or they would converse with the boys about the latest sporting news. Eugene would merely listen passively since she hadn't any knowledge on such matters anyway. She existed in the fringe of their colorful existence, and every day after self-revision session, she would return to her hostel where she faced a bed and four walls. Since most of the students were locals who didn't have to live in the school hostel, the hostel was very simply furnished. The hostel residents were just like Eugene. They were either from the nearby counties or villages. They were most similar, having quite disposition and a wooden expression. Even when they gathered back in the dormitories at night, there was little conversations. The only thing of note was that often in the dead of the night or in the wee hours of the morning, one could make out light coming from under the blankets. The other two female classmates were Eugene's dormitory mates. They were called Mo Yuwa and Zhu Jing. But like Eugene, they entered the school because they had performed well in the nationwide examination. Furthermore, they were still very competent in their studies and were always mugging. They regarded Eugene with a touch of scorn in their eyes. Eugene found this to be expected. They were all county kids, yet she could not even compare to them since they entered through proper channels. Moyuwa was chubby and looked plain. Still, she was the only one of the most diligent in class and hardly smiled. Solving problems and memorizing words were second nature to her. It cannot be said that she was difficult to get along with, though. Sometimes she was even willing to share some of her boiled water with Eugene. People like us, apart from studying with all our hearts, what chance do we have of getting out of a farming future back in the county? This was the only time that Moyuwa shared her thoughts with Eugene so openly. On the other hand, Zhu Jing was a petite and upright girl. She was always ready to help. She liked to run ahead of the teachers and would always rush to dust the blackboard. She also liked to join in the conversations of the city girls, but was never fully accepted. However, she was pretty popular among the boys and was neither close to nor ignored Eugene. Eugene once overheard one of the female classmates, Meng Shu, telling a boy, "It's not that we don't like to talk to those county girls, but there is really nothing in common. We can't be talking about livestock and arable land, right?" Indeed, Eugene agreed there was no common topic, so she kept herself and was nothing like spirited girl back in her hometown. As for the boys, now that the sea was comparatively larger, it was only natural that there were better looking fishes. But at this awkward age, the young lads still had not grasped the concept of gentlemanliness. Even when it came to filling their cups with water, the boys would jostle with the girls. What really took the cake was the boys would refer to all 8 female classmates as the 8 dinosaurs. They were nothing like the romantic male leads in romance novels. When Eugene looked in the mirror,